I needed a monopod that would let me use the LIDAR scanning function of my iPhone and take video from 15 to 17 feet over my head. The largest one I could find was about 7 feet, so I built one by adding two 6-foot monopods together end to end. The final length is about 10 feet extended. It's only 2.5 feet when it's collapsed, and it weighs just about 2 pounds. I'll show you everything I did. As part of my job, I use iPhone LiDAR technology to scan vehicles, and some of them are 13 feet high or taller. And I need to get my iPhone up 13 feet plus off the ground, probably 15 feet. So using my own shoulder height of about 5 feet, I need to add about 10 feet of tripod to pull this off in order to scan the tops of the vehicles. So I'm going to make a selfie stick that's 10 feet long. You can't really buy them. The hardest one I've seen is about 81 inches long, and I bought that one. I liked it. In fact, it's exactly like this. It's the same piece of manufacturing, but with a different label on it. I think that the Chinese companies sell these to multiple different labels for resale in the United States. So I was able to buy these two tripods, which are quite nice quality. They're aluminum. The lever locks are really strong. It's pretty tough. And so I paid $14.95 a piece for these two. And the reason I bought two is that each one of them extends to about 61 inches. That's just a little over 5 feet, obviously. And so if I want 10 feet out of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble the bottom lever locks on each of the tripods and marry them. In order that when I'm done, if I extend both legs all the way, I ought to be able to reach up to 10 feet. And then I can put my iPhone holder on the top and make this the top of the tripod. And then down here I'll have a foam handle and a good base, and I'll be able to maneuver the thing even though it's 10 feet long with a pretty stable bottom. The weakest point, of course, will be in the middle where the legs of the tripod get pretty skinny. So I haven't decided exactly whether I'm going to use the second section of the tripod or the first section of the tripod for the overlap. But I'm going to see if it can even be done by taking these apart, and I'll take you along with me. And if it works, you'll see this video. If it doesn't, I'll bury it. In order to disassemble these legs, these don't have Allen keys or screws or anything like that. So right here is a pin in the top of the tripod clamp that runs all the way through. In all the other examples that I've seen, this pin pushes out from bottom to top. So I'm going to hope that that's the way this works. And I'm going to start here, and I'm going to try and drive that pin down upward in terms of the tripod and pull it out and see if I can take the clamp apart. I'm just going to use a nail because it's strong and I don't have to worry about it bending, but I don't want to use the sharp point. So I'm just going to nip off the tip to make it a little more blunt and then use that as a punch. And I'm going to tap down and I'm going to see if I can drive that pin out. It's entirely possible I'll ruin a $15 tripod, but I'm willing to find out. And there it goes. So the piece that was inside there is a pin with a spline down the middle. You can see right down the middle. The top and bottom are both the same size. So it pulled out, it could have gone either direction, and I tone up driving it from the bottom toward the top. So that caused the tripod leg to do this. There's my nail. This piece right here, the lever lock falls out. And then in all the other examples I've seen of this little lock inside here, which fits in this channel and pinches the leg, should drop out into my hand. There it is. Looks like that. And now this can come off, and this little collar that holds the leg in place slides off, and the entire leg comes apart. These two pieces are like two different clamshell sections that sit on the end. I'm going to take good care of them because I want this thing to be able to stick together. I can't have it coming apart while it's in the air. And this collar slides up and down. Just remember how it looks, and we'll put it back in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and take the second one off. Same process. Put my blunted nail at the top of the pin. And tap it out. There's the lever lock. Remove the inset. Two pieces come apart. There's the clamshell for section 5. And you notice that the little collar that goes inside here, see this collar there? That butts up against the smallest leg of each of the unions. So when you put it back together, make sure it goes that way. And I'm going to keep all these parts for the different sections separate. So now with this guy out of the way, my goal is to take the union that I just pulled off, this one, flip it upside down so it was sitting on the pole like this, with its connecting section 4 to section 5. I'm going to flip this over. And now I'm going to put that on the end of section 5 here, and then I'm going to let the rest of the tripod extend that way, removing this section altogether. So you can see I can't just get rid of this. I can take the knob off, but I got to get rid of the little threaded section at the end that looks like that. So probably best to use a grinder, chop that right off. So here's where we get to the destructive portion of the project. After this, can't return these to Amazon. So inside, there's a threaded section that this guy goes into. Okay, I'm gonna use my trusty Ryobi angle grinder and a metal wheel. And I'm gonna leave the second tripod almost completely intact. It's gonna be the one that doesn't get disassembled, but I am gonna slice the bottom off here. So I'm gonna cut really close to the ring. I'm gonna slice that whole section off and hopefully be able to put this guy back on it the other way. So that's the way it came out when I slide it off. You see the ferrule stayed inside. That doesn't really bother me. It's almost a solid piece of material at the end. I'm gonna tidy it up with the grinder before I put it back together. Well, this project was looking conceptually simple, except I just ran into a snag. Every one of the tubes has a rectangular hole cut at the top, the upper end of the tube, and then 2 square holes cut at the bottom, which interact with these different sleeves. This one, which I just sliced the end off of, and this tripod has no holes. In order to get the little clamshell pieces from the section that I took off to fit on it, I've got to make a space for this little bitty plastic square that's inside there. This thing fits into this hole in the leg, and so when it drops in there, it holds it in place. And if you try and put it on without a place for that square to go, it sticks out too far sideways. Like if I were to put it on here, it flares and that piece won't go down inside the tube anymore. You've got to get it inside the hole so that there's just a tiny little interference between this piece and the tube edge. So I'm gonna drill a hole in those spots right there that I just marked off, which is about where I think this rectangle is supposed to go. And then hopefully once I drill that hole in there, it will let this drop inside and this will fit. And this very strange cut-off end of the leg will now act a whole lot like the leg that I replaced it with. So if that worked, I ought to be able to fit that right over the hole. And that little square drops right inside. And I don't think I've dramatically weakened it, and it's going to be inside another tripod leg anyway. So now I'm going to try it on the exact opposite side. Okay, now for the connection that makes this into something that we've never had before. This is the 4-5 connection from the second tripod that I took apart.
I'm going to take it, flip it upside down. I'm going to take the little sleeves that go on the 5 section that I drilled a hole for and put them on in just a second. First, you got to take this sleeve. So this rectangular cutout that's inside there is designed to line up with the spot where the cam drops inside and locks the tripod. So when you put this inside, you see it fits in there perfectly. It doesn't go this way because of the interference, right? So since I've had to turn this upside down, we also have to turn this sleeve upside down. On the rest of the tripod, these sleeves go this way. Like this, dot, 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 dot. But I'm flipping it so that it mates up with this guy. Then we can take that whole guy and slide him on right there. Now with him in place, you can put the little clamshells on the end inside the holes we drilled. Then this is the tube from the 4 section of the tripod that I disassembled. You got to get that rectangular hole to line up with that rectangular hole. So the lock lever on this one is going to go to this outside direction now. We get one of the pins. We got to force it back inside there. Got to have the lever open because otherwise it's under too much pressure with the cam plate underneath. Alright, that seats in there very nicely. Now, good, just like we hope, it stops when it gets to its end of its extension and it locks down nice and tight right there. So there's the joint between the 2 tripods. Now, here's the original tripod section that I disassembled. We take this 3/4 section, put it on, join it up with the sleeve. Then we can put on the clamshells here. Line the rectangular section on this rod up with the rectangular hole in the sleeve, like that. They fit together. Drop in the cam pressure plate for this one. Another cam lever going the same way as these. The last pin. And so now, let's see how it works. Both of these sections are, look, so these are number 4. That's a 4 section and that's a 4 section. This is the only 5 section in the monopod. This is the 5 section that I took out and it will have no use after this. When I stretch it out, both of my 5 sections have stoppers because we drilled that section in here. So now either one of the 4 sections can telescope with that 5 section. So it can only run in about halfway. The others all use their full length. So I can press it down. And so with all the cams together, it looks like that. So from tip to tip, it's 31 inches. When I extend it, it's going to be 61 inches twice. So that's 122 minus this piece, which is 15. So it will be 107 inches total. So that means with my 5-foot shoulders and 107 inches, or just over 9 feet of tripod, I should be able to get 14 feet in the air with just this section. If I add an extension or a camera tripod on the top, it'll get even a little taller, and I think I can handle really big trucks with this now. So there it is, fully extended. With every one of those pieces in it. This is the skinny link and the one I'm the most worried about, but if it starts to seem like it's under too much bending, then I'll just shorten this link down. So I can cut it down by a foot and it'll be as tough as 2 of the 4 sections. And so the whole thing winds up being about 104.5 inches.
So this thing is pretty rigid considering it's 10 feet long, and it's very lightweight. I'm currently, as you can see, holding with one hand with my phone on the top. I've got a little Manfrotto ball mount up there that lets me tip the camera, but it works out great and it doesn't look like it's gonna flex or break or drop my phone or anything. So I hope that's of use to you. Thanks a lot.